All right, everyone, please enjoy. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Neeta Ragoowansi, president of Music Managers Forum US, MMF US, and the International Music Managers Forum. And it is a pleasure to be here. Come on down, and we have this amazing panel. What do we call it? The Manager's Playbook. We're talking to these amazing humans over here who are managers, the most selfless job in the music industry. And we're going to learn about what they're doing, because this really applies, not just to managers as they work with artists, but to the artists as they work with managers, and artists who are self-managed artists, when you got to do it yourself. It's important to sort of exchange information. We love when we have managers talking to other managers and self-managed artists and saying, this is how we do it, this is our growth strategy, this is how we look at revenue models, this is how we look at increasing revenue, this is how we look at dealing with the logistics around touring and working with whatever ticketing company we want to work with. And we are in a summit about music and social impact. And so how do we work with artists when we are wanting to work around activism and advocacy issues? And the list goes on and on and on and on. So I think I'm going to pull up my questions. And we're going to start. But first, let's start with a little introduction. Erica, tell us about yourself for a sec, huh?
If you were here this morning or for the first panel, I moderated that, and one of the things that I said in that was that as an artist manager, a music executive, we wear many hats, which is why I'm back on this panel as with my artist manager hat. I've been an artist manager for almost 20 years. I started my career in Los Angeles. I've been in New York for the last decade plus. I've worked with everyone from 30 Seconds to Mars, Passion Pit, Prince Royce, The Pretty Reckless, Fergie. And one of my favorite things about artist management is the development aspect, which is lost sort of industry-wide, but still I hold near and dear to my heart. And so I have a client who we've been developing who's showcasing here this week. Her name is Jo Alice. Her first single came out on Friday. Go see her on the 17 shows that she's playing across Austin. Find me, let's connect. Yeah, that's
Great,
me.
thank you, welcome. Okay, here we go, Reid. Say hi.
What's up? My name is Reid Martin. I'm an artist manager at my company in New Orleans called MidCitizen Entertainment. We're hosting a showcase at Stubbs on Thursday, so if you're around Thursday, but yeah, we manage 10 artists. Most of our staff is in New Orleans. We've got somebody up in New York as well. I manage Big Frida, who's showcasing, and I also have a separate business called Imprinted Services, where I work on building tools for artist managers.
Ah, very cool, very cool. And hey, Jack.
How are you?
Fine.
Jack Gallagher. I live here in Austin, Texas. My company's called Open Management. Started in 2021. I've been managing for about 15 years. I have a few clients here this week that are playing shows. You want to check them out. It's a band from Austin, Chaparral. Kid from LA, Timmy Skelly. Another kid, Luke Tyler Shelton from LA. And Matt from Mount Joy played a show on Sunday night. But it's definitely like there's still a lot of great discovery here at South by. Excited to chat.
Excellent, well, thank you. Okay, so the role of the artist manager has definitely changed a lot through the years. I mean, it used to be that, it was the person, and this still happens, I remember my cousin, who's a recording artist in Sony, her manager he would get down on hands and knees and vacuum the stage floor at every venue she played at, because she liked to perform in her bare feet.
I thought you were going to say that he begged her to do things.
That too, no, I'm joking. No, I'm not joking. I like that you said that.
Oh, that was not meant to be inappropriate. Sorry.
No, I'm glad you said it. We're going to go there, actually. If you said it, I'm glad we're going to go there.
Do things to grow her own career. That also didn't, whatever. We'll get there.
I'm glad you said it, because it is a part of some of the stigma that came around the profession was around managers who did and didn't create safe spaces for their artists, whether it was the manager themselves or how an artist would go into a recording studio or into a club and then be invited into the back room of a club. And so the other hat I wear is I'm a global co-chair of Women in Music. And so this issue around safe spaces has been a real important part of it all. So I didn't want to make light of it and laugh. I wanted to make sure that I explained that this is important, and I'm so glad you mentioned it. We're going to come back to this. Good, thank you. So this artist management role has changed so very much, and how do you define the artist manager in 2025? I know it's a big question, but throw out some ideas.
I'll start because the way that I define the role in 2025 is still very similar to the way that I defined the role when I first came into the business, which is, a partner, an advocate, an advisor, a fan, a marketer, and someone who believes in whatever the artist is. I always said that I'm not a great liar, but if I believe in something, I can sell ice to Eskimos. And so I've had the fortune of working with artists that I do truly believe in, and I think that's made us both more successful. And that relationship is the same today with my clients. The emotional investment that I make is the same, oftentimes to my own detriment, but learning in my older years to set better boundaries and reveal myself as a human and not a robot. But I still see myself as a partner in their business and want the ultimate good for them. So everything that I suggest or bring is sort of framed by that feeling.
Yeah, Reid.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're the CEO of their whole operation, and oftentimes that involves not doing anything related to music at all, depending on the artist. And so I always say it's my job to know the people that know the people. So I don't necessarily need to know who's booking all the festivals or who's the person to get us on late night TV. I need to know those people that know the people to get to that step. And so if I've got an artist that wants to get into film and TV or start makeup line or something like that, then I've got to learn a little bit about that business, but identify the other people that know more about it than I do.
Yeah. And there's so many changes in the industry. Reid, like how do you, I mean, with AI, with different models coming up, but how do you adapt to the changes as a manager?
This dovetails into the other business that I'm building. And I'm personally working on building digital agents, which is not what we think of when we hear the word agent in the music business. I'm sure a lot of you have heard this term already, and by the end of the year, we're going to hear it all the time. But building tools for artist managers. So I built an agent that helps with tour press, and this is all stuff that works in email. But you just email your digital agent like, "Hey, Big Frida's playing in Houston. Here's the press release," or the agent can write the press release for you, and it goes out and services Houston. And if you don't have a publicist, which oftentimes my artists don't, if they're not on cycle, that takes care of it. And working on building those tools to advance shows and things like that, so it frees up my time and my team's time, so we can figure out how to generate more revenue for our artists rather than just being bogged down in the day-to-day.
Can you do that for MMF too?
I'm happy to.
We need a tool. We need a tool like that. Yeah, go for it. Sure.
So when you be the digital agent, then you would be managing that as well?
Yeah, it's my other business, Imprinted, like if there's a workflow that's routine in your workflow, that's what we build out for. And so it's software, but it functions within your email, or you can text with it. And so we've been hired by a major promoter that does 3,000 shows a year, and we're building a digital talent buying assistant for them. And so they just copy that digital talent buying assistant, who's named Caitlin, but they're copying Caitlin on their emails, and Caitlin is doing the data entry that the talent buyer normally has to do to actually build the offer. Or Caitlin is also plugged into Roster and Polestar and can tell the talent buyer how many tickets an artist might be worth in a certain market based on that promoter's data and based on their access to Polestar and whatnot as well. So it's about building out those typical routine tasks that somebody does, and I'm an artist manager, so I'm more passionate about building out tools for managers. But as I said, we've been contracted by promoters and whatnot to build tool sets for them as well. And so I'm very passionate about this right now, and I think we're all going to be living in this world here, really starting this year.
That's pretty cool because that assists you in the general manager.
Yeah.
Assistive AI is a beautiful thing. I mean, tons of managers use just, the regular AI tools out there just to, build the tour itinerary and the logistics around it the way we do vacations. And right, and it's a beautiful thing. Okay, I want to go back to the defining the role thing for a moment. Jack, how would you define in 2025 what that artist management role looks like? Or, all the years you've been in it, how's it changed for you?
Yeah, I think tying in the two things you were just talking about, I mean, they covered it mostly what it is, but I think it's also you truly are their representation, so you're speaking for them, so you need to make sure that you know what you're talking about so that you can ethically represent them, and actually know what you're talking about. And then to the technological aspect of things, you have to continue to keep learning and stay on the forefront of what's going on, or else you can't properly manage somebody. So it's really it's never ending. I do a lot of calls weekly with companies that are here at South by that are reaching out with new tools they're building out or things they're trying to do to solve problems in the music industry. And it can be monotonous to do all these calls, but you got to kind of do them to make sure you're not missing something that could change the life of your artist. And so it's important just to keep on the forefront of technology and other practices in general for your artists.
Yeah. So besides Reid's amazing platform, I mean, is there other technologies that you're excited about? Any of you that you're using, that you're integrating into your day-to-day?
Yeah, I mean, there's basic ones that I think everyone should be using to lay low to collect data and to interact with your fans and to do pre-sales and merch drops and all things like that. I think they're at the forefront of that. I think there's certain platforms like that you should just make sure you have up to date. Bandsintown obviously has been around for forever. Just some of them are here today. Covering your bases, I guess, with the older platforms too. Other new platforms, there's a lot of different fan platforms for super fans. I think it'd be good to do your research across those different platforms, because once you start sending your fans to a super fan platform, it's kind of hard to make them go join another one when you realize it wasn't the platform for you. But I think that is at the forefront of ways where us as managers, since we don't have data from Instagram and Spotify that's more particular to the exact fan, that we can actually build a fan community, communicate with them, give them special experiences that are sticky, and also sell them things.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about business strategy and revenue. Let's talk money for a moment here. So what are your best strategies for artists to build sustainable revenue streams? And what are some of your favorite checks that are coming through in reality? Where's it coming from?
Shows.
Checks. I'm going with the old.
Did you say shows or checks? Shows. So, I mean, for me, the thing that holds true from day one is it's about the music first, right? It's about the song. And I've always been really into the relationship between the fan and the artist and how to nurture that. And the idea of you might be playing to one fan, but that one fan will remember you and stick with you for the rest of your career. And so you need to treat them like a super fan from day one. And today, our music that we're releasing is kind of the calling card, right? Where most artists are not making their real money off of that, but it's your entry point, it's your introduction, and that takes you to every other area. I would say that yes, still today, the live area is the most interesting as far as how to build revenue streams, the alternate models that have come from that. 15 years ago, I was doing VIP programming with 30 Seconds to Mars when promoters were like, we can't do that. And I said, well, we can and we will. Because all it was about was a little extra staffing, a little extra venue prep, 2 or 3 hours before a show. The band's already there. And we were able to increase revenue with that kind of stuff on a great level. Merchandise, we pay very close attention to the merchandise that we're selling. It's highly curated. I'm highly involved in that process as the artist manager. not just because it's an interest, but because I think that there does need to be a human touch to all of the stuff that you are, sharing with your fan, especially today in the age of AI, where there are some really, really great things about it, but we can't fully take out the human aspect.
That's right. Yeah. Reid, were you? Or Jack, go for it.
I was just going to echo Jack. I mean, live performances still drives the majority of revenue for my roster and for my company. The other two things that I would highlight, to echo Erica, is what can you sell directly to your fans, especially with recorded music. And I think that there's a lot of creative things that are happening around dropping music before it hits DSPs. Obviously, vinyl came back, but I think that there are ways where you can digitally create scarcity still with your music before it goes wide to
Perception.
DSPs. Yeah,
Perception is...
That's right. Yeah, and then the other thing is I try, you have to have a certain, an artist has to have a big enough fan base to do this, but if you can pivot to things that are outside of music, sometimes that helps you get around. Frida has a cannabis seltzer that's paying really well right now. Tank from Tank and the Bangas has a really great literary career as a poet and coming out with books. And so those types of things really help supplement my artist careers. But my developing acts that don't have, say, the fan bases of Tank and the Bangas or Big Frida, that's harder to get. You first have to own your music lane and start growing there before you get, fashion opportunities or whatever it is that could be ancillary to that particular artist.
And building out their revenue streams from shows and merch and other things outside of the music can help you protect the music to keep more ownership and help fund the music, so you don't have to take deals that are predatory and things you're going to regret later. The music does come first, and so making sure you're making the right deals is really important. Advances are generally bad loans, and so it's really important. If you don't know if you're looking at a bad deal, you should try to find a good lawyer. How do you find a good lawyer? Find a lawyer that works with reputable clients that have worked with them for a while. But I think it's really important to be careful with the deals you sign. If you sign good deals, you can make a lot of money in the back end, and it's not as much about that upfront money.
How do you source those deals? Give us examples? What are you looking at?
I think deals, a lot of things in life, if you're going to get a good deal, generally it's incoming. Because if you're going out looking for deals, you're not going to have the leverage of the hype that an incoming deal could have. And when there's multiple people at the table trying to do business with you, you can leverage them, obviously, against each other to try to get a better deal. There's a lot of other ways to put out your music that you can go out to people like distributors and look for, and there's also funding in those lanes as well. It's still very fair splits. And these are the, DistroKid, 1RPM, TuneCore, AWOL, just different tier, and each of those companies has different tiers of how you can release your music, what the splits look like, and if you're getting cash or not to help fund your project as well. But I'd really do your research online, watch YouTube videos. If you don't think you know about certain aspects of the industry, just really dive in online.
And find a person, to your point earlier about maybe not knowing the people that you need to know, but knowing people that can get you to those people. The independent distributors are great. They're greater if you have an internal champion.
Yeah.
So it's also our jobs to find who those people are.
Can you walk me, I know this is not on our list of questions, but I'm curious, walk me through just an example of, okay, I want to go to TuneCore, and this is my first time, I'm a new artist, but I have, not a new artist, but one that's been touring for a year or two, playing in my region, right? And I want to go to TuneCore. This is my second album I'm releasing. The first one I just self-released, went to CD Baby or somewhere, right? Or DistroKid, right? And put it up, but didn't really do much of a campaign around it. Okay, now I want to go to TuneCore. I heard I'm supposed to go to TuneCore. Can you just walk me through what does that deal look like? What, as an example, it may not be the deal, but walk me through what that phone call or that email might ask for and look like, because I know people don't understand that part, and I'm constantly getting questions around, hey, I heard I can go to TuneCore. What do I do?
I would just say that TuneCore specifically is not going to be any different than like a DistroKid or a CD Baby.
Okay.
However, the next level above that are the distributors like The Orchard, ADA, Virgin, Ingrooves, all of the distributors that are maybe associated with a major label, but or in their system, but they're independent. And it's slightly harder, and they charge 15-20% distribution fee.
I guess my question isn't like the standard thing, but when you're asking for a deal, what are you asking for? Not just to distribute. You're asking for something bespoke, right? Something special. What is that?
I guess it's like what you're asking for and like what you're giving up, or like what are the deal points? And the deal points are generally like, what's the split on the music? So what % are you keeping, and what % are they keeping? For how many years? And you should make sure it is for how many years, that you don't sign things in perpetuity. So it should have, that's the license period. And then how much cash is involved, and where does that cash? Is it actual cash in hand, or is it like a budget for marketing or videos or whatever it may be? And that's kind of like how the different points of the deal, I guess, that you have to be really aware of. And then what you're looking for in a partner, I think as a manager, you have to be really realistic that it's really on you and the artist to market the band. Like going to a label is not, like generally, they're not gonna like market your band for you, especially in today's era when you can create so much content on your own. I think a label will hopefully help you pitch this song to DSPs. Hopefully they'll help you give you funding, hopefully good ideas, and that, marketing or otherwise, and act as a partner. I mean, and ideally a label is like someone that's just getting daily wins with you as the manager to like extend or further the artist's career and try to accomplish their goals.
Thank you. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So there is a budget that's sometimes given. There is cash that is given. I think folks are not, and it doesn't happen all the time, right? Obviously, it couldn't possibly. But
and
what
it
makes
is a loan though.
What's that?
It's a loan though.
It's a loan,
Yeah.
It's a
and
loan.
that's what you're giving up.
But I think sometimes the currency in that situation is actually not the cash, right? It is about the relationship. So to put it in perspective, to give an example, I mentioned a developing artist that released a song that I'm working with last week, and it's been a very humbling experience to deal with the DistroKids and the TuneCores and the Symphonics of the world, because I have for a long time played in the major label sandbox. And so I'm, rolling up my sleeves and getting dirty. And for me, for Joella, she doesn't have leverage. She's never put out music. She's building a nice base for herself in Austin, and we're, extending that out to surrounding cities and states. But we don't have leverage, and when you don't have leverage, you're sort of at the mercy of whatever it is. But what I have found, and for this particular release, we went through DistroKid because I met someone who worked at DistroKid, loved her music, and became my go-to. And so that's a relationship that I've been nurturing and talking to, and am getting information that's helpful to my artists that you don't necessarily find by looking on the DistroKid website, right? So that's given us an edge. We have tools at our disposal. We know how to work the internal system, how to pitch her music for playlisting. And so, again, that human element can sometimes be worth even more than the cash in the beginning.
Thank you for that. So you talked about touring being an important revenue source. Okay. But tours can cost a lot too. How do you make them or ensure that they're profitable? What are some of those strategies is it always a risk, just a huge...
So you always start with a budget, and the actuals never come back the way the budget started. But it's being smart, it's being resourceful, it's being scrappy sometimes. There have been times in my career where I've had to ask 60-year-old men to share hotel rooms. That's a shitty conversation to have. I don't want to share a hotel room, but I sort of rely on their belief in the artist as much as mine. And depending on how you come at it, you can find ways to save in places.
Yeah. What do you guys
You want to take it?
Sure. Yeah, making a budget, and then it depends on what part of your career you're at, obviously. But there's new problems at each level because you start spending on more things. You go from being in a van with your friends, sleeping on couches, and the budget's like very easy to figure out. It's how much does the van cost? What are you spending on food and gas? It's very basic. But then once you add other elements into touring, you have to get much more in the weeds with all the other expenses, and you have to make decisions at the right time when you talking to like industry professionals, like, are you at the right place to add lights? Are you big enough to get a bus or a box truck or whatever it may be? And so I think there's like different problems budget wise along the way, but at the beginning it is just being scrappy. Like, I have 2 tours going on right now where they are going to be staying on friends' couches and stuff because they're only making $500 a night, and the car costs X and a hotel would cost X. And so touring is very tough in the beginning. I think in your home market, obviously it's easier because you don't have the expenses of like lodging and transportation and all that. So I think building in your community first is definitely the way to go. And then look for indicators that tell you to go elsewhere as you collect data and like using
Yes.
Laylo and seeing where your other people are as you push on social media, and they, you accumulate more data to see where people are. I think then you can take more risks as to like going out and, putting yourself out there.
I'm glad you brought up data because I wanted to understand, like, how do you use data? Do you use it to inform your tour strategy? Which actual data platforms? Where are you getting your data? What are you using?
I mean, just being able to just aggregate your social followers and where your Spotify streams are coming from is a really good start. And I guess it also depends on, a lot of our data comes from our past shows as well. The more you're working with an artist, the more you get a sense for what cities are good, what regions are good, what countries are good for this artist. And as you're trying to break new ground, if you're going to places where you're not as popular, the one strategy I think we probably have all employed on the stage is if you've got an artist that gets a festival offer somewhere, and that's a really, say good money, you might fly in, but then route 2 shows in secondary markets around it where you might be breaking even, but would otherwise you'd take a loss to get there, just so you can start to break in some new territories. And then from there, I still think, trying to get a robust email list is the best data that you can have, where you actually own, you can speak directly to your fans. So it's trying to capture as much direct-to-fan contact information as you can at the shows as possible as well.
And so what about licensing revenue? Sound exchange checks. Do you try to maximize those? You have artists probably that have publishing deals and record deals and some that don't. How do you manage that? How do you work around that? How do you strategize the growth on that?
I mean, that's almost another full-time job. I'm actually in the process of running an audit on a client right now. And it's a team effort between myself, her attorney, and her business manager. She is at a level that, has multiple team members, but we talk about these black box monies in the business, and it's sort of money that's left on the table. And I think oftentimes we don't even know what we don't know. And we have found in an artist who is very well known, and lots of hit songs on radio, we have found registrations on many songs that have revealed monies that were left on the table. And so it's, you have to be very detail oriented. You kind of need to be auditing every aspect of your client's career at all times, which is a challenge because sometimes we're limited in the machine or the women people power that we have to do that. But again, that's a competitive edge as a manager, right? If you are also really sort of diving in on the business of your artist and helping to ensure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, because that money can be significant at any level, really.
Yeah, there's a new company coming out too that I've been working with called Notes that's going to help artists audit their back end and make it simple. It's been difficult for me as a manager to understand all of those different aspects of the business, especially early on in my career. And it's made to be difficult for a reason. It's so people don't find their money. And so this company Notes it's from the guy who started STEM. But he's really trying to make it very easy for artists to register their songs all in one place and be able to track their revenue in one place and check their registrations in one place. And they've already found my clients a lot of money, especially there's some new royalties from Spotify that they're starting to pay out. Found a lot of money. And so keep an eye out for this company called Notes soon.
Thank you for that recommendation.
Are you getting a kickback? Are you a partner in this company?
I invested in it. I did invest.
You did. Ah.
I mean, it's a great idea.
Disclaimer.
I mean, I think one of the biggest issues facing artists and managers today is like decentralization of our information and therefore monetization. So that's great to have it all in one place.
I mean, so when you're building the business plan or the strategy or the growth strategy for any one artist, so does the licensing piece just sort of, if it's in there, I assume, but is there any ideas around the growing, the maximizing those checks from those streams? How do you go about that?
So I think you need to find people, whether it's people that are pitching you on the publishing side. So if you get a publishing deal or just an admin deal that comes with sync. Same thing on the master side. If it's your record label, your distributor, it's about finding people that are passionate about the music, that are actually going to go out there and pitch it. But at the same time, I don't again, we manage a lot of artists. Somehow Big Frida does tons of sync business all the time. And it's a great revenue source, and it hasn't dried up. But then we've got artists that are the same size, if not bigger, where music supervisors just don't take to it as much. So I'd never try and build a strategy for my artists around we're going to get syncs, because it is the ultimate mailbox money. It is just stuff that falls from heaven every once in a while, and it's tough to strategize around it. The best thing you can do for your artists is just try and increase their profile, period, so that more supervisors know who they are and are interested in placing their music. But
Right. Yeah, because there's short-term goals, right? Sometimes branding and touring to a certain degree, although it's a short and long-term strategy. There's goals and strategies, and then there's long-term and copyrights. Sometimes the mailbox money, right? It's the gift that keeps on giving. And so, I was just curious if you have thoughts around that in terms of balancing your short and your long-term goals and the strategies on those.
I guess trying to do short license deals, because then you can, at the end of the term, receive all your money, and that's why for me the license is generally the most important aspect of a deal that you're doing. I think that's something to keep an eye on, that you can make all your money at a certain point when you own the song fully.
Erica, did you have a thought around that, or?
I mean, I think the guys kind of covered where
they did.
we're coming from. Yeah.
So let's go into the manager themselves and your role and your business model for your business as a manager. Okay, there's the relationship you have with the artist, but you got to look out for yourselves and your careers and your businesses. Because in the end, you can only help the artist so much, and if you're not doing okay, right? I say it's the most selfless job in the music industry because I watch managers constantly, giving their heart and soul and working 80 hours a week or whatever, more or less, whatever, to really, help the artist. But in the end, there's burnout, there's lack of funds because they've somehow spent too much of their own money on things. To help that artist. How do you look at that? And Eric, I know we've talked about this. How do you look at that traditional artist structure, right? The traditional model for a manager is to get their commission. They do that contract with their artist. Hopefully they've done a contract. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's done on a handshake. And they take their commission, whatever that may be. Have you looked at alternate models? I'll point it at you, Erica. Have you looked at alternate models for the manager?
Sure. I mean, when I got into the business originally, it was I wasn't really concerned about my own business model or making money. It was really just about pursuing this passion and wanting to, help artists actualize their dreams. It was pretty altruistic. And I think with my own evolution as a human, my, prioritization around thinking about a business model for myself has also evolved. I have worked for a couple of really well-respected and successful boutique management firms in my career and had the ability to work with artists on all levels. And so to that end, I was always pretty well taken care of. But in today's, landscape, the investment in an artist in time alone has really become much longer and much greater, and sometimes without any return. When I was starting, nothing was ever guaranteed, but there were certain things that you could do, that you could try, some sort of path that you could use to most likely build a sustainable career, and hopefully beyond. But there were some clear pathways and things that you could do. And today, it's kind of the Wild West, for lack of a better word, which is both great for those of us that just want to be nimble and able to move around, but it poses some challenges for those of us that are trying to run businesses. And so I maintain a small roster of clients that has a very traditional management agreement, percentage of gross. We're often the first ones in and the last to get paid. I've deferred and waived commissions for many clients in the past because they just paid everybody else and couldn't afford to eat. And for a long time, that was okay. But I've sort of pivoted a little bit and, again, just where I'm at in my life and in my career and wanting to open doors in new avenues. And so I do still have my management roster. I've opened up a consulting firm that sort of brings my management mind to artists. But as a consultant, we work on a monthly retainer type basis with assurances built in for both sides. It's very fair, very artist friendly. And then I've been able to, extend to brands and labels and sort of bring the artist marketing framework to that.
Right. Yeah. So manager as consultant on a retainer, a lot healthier at times actually, and having than necessarily an ongoing commission-based model where there's going to be some very slow periods and financial instability and risks that are taken. Have any of you thought about the idea, though, of and you may not have, I don't know, the looking at the artist company as a startup, where the manager and maybe the rest of the team take equity in the company that's an ongoing relationship in perpetuity?
So my business partner, Tavia, who I started MidCitizen with, she's managed Tank and the Bangas since 2010 and convinced Tank to start a band. And so they started it together. And so Tavia personally has 25% of Tank and the Bangas as an entity. Now, MidCitizen gets paid a management commission outside of that. So again, we don't as a company own a piece of the band. And to be clear, we started MidCitizen way after she had started managing Tank and the Bangas. But I've never taken, it just hasn't been something that has presented itself where it made sense for me or MidCitizen to take a piece of equity in an artist's career, but my business partner has before we started our business, so I've seen that happen.
Cool. And there will be, because music's not the only vertical in which we're driving revenue, right? It's there may be other companies, other businesses. I mean, Jack, were we talking about businesses that you start sometimes as a manager, but you end up being a business partner with your artist? Have you were, I think, talking about that earlier?
I think that's different. I don't feel comfortable myself having ownership in perpetuity. I think, I know it's not this, the smarter thing to do would to be to say you do, or to fight for that, but I don't feel comfortable with it. But I think for when it comes to starting other businesses, I think that's really interesting to me because that's a new thing, and that's using them and their influence, and maybe even maybe it's day-to-day stuff they'd be adding to that business, or maybe it's more of them using their influence and their clout and their finances to help a business that you more so run because they are the talent partner. I think that's interesting to me, and there's a couple things I've done with started a couple little labels where we'll put out music that the artist is interested in helping support. So it gives us, and I'm the label. They'd be co-signing it, maybe helping with the music, adding opportunities to them from the artist perspective. That's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
And then other investing in things together has been interesting. I think artists can help you get in the door of those type of opportunities, and they bring a certain value into investments, whereas the manager brings different value as well to certain things.
Yeah.
So that's been cool to do more of as well.
Good. Managers, business partners sometimes makes sense. I wanted to, just because I know we have limited time, I want to turn over to artist activism because here we are. Do you work with your artists on any activism, advocacy issues? And, you know, in this day and age, it's almost expected that an artist is going to have a view on something and engage in advocacy in some way, shape, or form. How do you navigate that with your artist?
Most of the advocacy that has happened with the artists that I've worked with over my career has come in the form of their writing, to be honest. For whatever reason, my clients have wanted to stay a little bit sort of quiet about the things that they are personally passionate about. They're all involved in things, but haven't necessarily used their name and likeness to bring awareness on a massive scale. It is something that's important to me. It's something that sort of, you know, drives my own work and something that I try to encourage them to do. But I think sometimes we blur the lines, and you know, it can be difficult to bring that into the forefront when you're focused on the art. So yeah.
Do you?
I was going to say, I mean, I know we're, one of the focuses of today is about gun violence. And during the pandemic, we made a film called Frida Got a Gun that came out on Peacock. And it was about Frida's own, gun violence is a big deal in New Orleans. And so it kind of chronicled, it's a documentary of Frida's own journey and relationship to guns. And so we really got into just the, you know, gun safety, gun violence issue after that. And but when you work with an artist, a lot of the artists on our roster do stand for a lot of things very publicly. And so oftentimes those opportunities come in because they're vocal on social media or whatever it is. So nonprofit organizations come to us, and it then becomes a timing thing. If an artist hasn't, like, they want to do all of the things, but sometimes you literally can't say yes to all the philanthropic or advocacy things because the time doesn't work out. So you just have to figure out what fits.
Yeah, and you help them prioritize through it.
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff my artists do is generally like things that are timely for things that are going on in real time that we can speak to, and also use our platform to try to make money from, hopefully in a real way, like in the live show space or with a merch item. Another thing band Mountjoy I manage does for all of their shows is we work with this company Sharing Excess that's does food drives. And we gamify it so like somebody that donates food gets to watch the second half of the show on the side stage. Therefore, like, you know, hopefully people just want to bring food anyways and help people, but if not, like, add a fan experience thing that drives a little bit more interest. And my goal would be to have like every band do that because it's pretty easy because the company provides the volunteers. The volunteers get free tickets, so it's just like good vibes all around. And most promoters and venues have been cool with it. And I think that we have an opportunity of like having brick and mortar events as our business being touring, that to like how do we like use those to like actually make a difference. I think a food drive is a super easy way to do so. So I'm going to try to get more. And people, this is not we were not the first person that's done this, but I think it would be an easy thing for every band to do at a larger scale.
Yeah. Thank you. Cool. I love it. Yeah, I mean, social activism and taking our artists into a place where they can have creative models like that, right? It's so good. It makes me think of Global Citizen, where I used to work, and that the artists have to do the fans have to do a bunch of activist actions on their app in order to gain entry into their festivals. And it's a beautiful way to get people exposed and raise awareness on a variety of issues. At the heart of it is that fans want to engage, and they want to have that experience and support what their artists believe in. And so it's a beautiful relationship and an opportunity to do that. I know we're kind of at time, aren't we? I want to take one question from the audience. Yeah, I'm going to go back there. Yes. Hi. Reid, did you hear that?
Yeah,
Repeat it.
yeah,
for the
I think I got. I
audience,
think
if you would.
basically aspiring artists trying to figure out what to look for in a manager, and I didn't get the second part actually. Oh, expectation. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay, so
Growth strategy was the second part.
yeah, in terms of expectations, I think so. A manager could bring passion, connections, and capital. Capital they may have themselves, or they go find a record deal or distribution deal and help get you money, or they know outside investors. Out of those three things, and this is earlier in your career, obviously, passion is the most important. So I started managing artists in 2014. I had been an artist myself and then a tour manager. And I started managing some baby bands that were really crushing it in New Orleans, but hadn't really gone outside of New Orleans yet. And so we were kind of in the same level coming up together. And it took some wrangling for them to take a chance on me and let me be their manager. And so I would just say that earlier on in your career, certainly, email and DM on LinkedIn as many managers as you can if you're trying to look for one that feels like they might be a good fit, of course. But if there are people in your sphere that may be less experienced but are truly passionate about your music and your career, I think that oftentimes goes a lot further than somebody, like I've been doing it now for a decade, but if I were to take on just a developing artist right now, I may not actually be able to do as good of a job because my bandwidth is limited. So I would look for somebody that's really passionate about your music, that you feel is competent and has the drive to go out and meet new people and really advocate on your behalf and grow with that person. And then in terms of my strategy, in terms of breaking new artists, it has to be a case-by-case basis. But it really comes down to three things because strategy is always changing in terms of what you're doing digitally or whatnot. But there are three things that never change that enhance your word-of-mouth marketing. That is great songs, great recordings of those songs, and putting on a great live show. That's all about your product as an artist. But if you as an artist have habits built around those, like you are taking time to write songs at this specific times every week. You're figuring out a way to record those songs in a way that sounds great, is done cheaply, or as cheaply as you can, but still is amazing. And you're building out routines and processes around those. And then you're rehearsing your live show, whether you're performing a track or with a band once or twice a week, and then just getting out and road testing it and playing to 5 people, whatever it is. But it takes time to become a great live artist. And I'm certain you probably already are. You're sitting here and you're driven. But I think for you as an artist, the most important things are to make sure that you have built out internal habits and structures around those three things, and then find a passionate manager that can then deal with what are you doing on YouTube Shorts and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
I love it. It's amazing. And you know what? We are at time. Thank you so much to our panelists and to the audience for engaging in this conversation. Thank you so much for sharing some of the manager's playbook. I like it. Good insights.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Neeta.
us.